So we're just going to read through a couple of Jewish texts in English. As I mentioned before, in the Torah portion that we read tomorrow morning, we celebrate our freedom from Pharaoh. We marched to freedom. We left Egypt. Finally, we were no longer slaves. We were free people. And in tomorrow's Torah reading, one of the things that we'll study that will happen is the splitting of the Red Sea, where Moses holds out his staff. He didn't have a maraca, but he held out his staff, and the sea split, and our ancestors walked on dry ground. And what's interesting is that the miracle of the splitting of the sea is very similar to how God created the world. And so we have the first text, if you'll just look at that, text number 1. In Genesis, in the creation of the world, God hovered over the darkness and chaos and brought order, including this statement from the creation story on day 2. And God said, "Let the waters under the heaven be gathered to one place, and let the dry land appear." Let the water part and let the dry land appear. Sounds very similar to our story of the Exodus. In Exodus 2, God hovered above the chaos as the Egyptians descended upon the terrified Israelites, trapped at the water's edge. This is what we'll read tomorrow morning. And again, at that moment, God established order. And this is what it says in our Torah reading tomorrow, in the story of Exodus. "Thus there was the cloud with the darkness, and it cast a spell upon the night," something sort of mystical and magical, "so that the one could not come near the other all through the night. Then Moses held out his arm over the sea, and the Lord drove back the sea with a strong east wind all that night, and turned the sea into dry ground, and the waters were split." So you can see the similarity between the creation of the world, where God caused the waters to part and land appeared, and our story, our Exodus, where God caused the waters to part and there was dry ground. Source number 3 says, on the link between these narratives, Rabbah Sarah Hurwitz wrote, "The gathering of the waters in Genesis culminated in God creating living beings, allowing life to flourish on earth. On the shores of the Red Sea, the splitting of the waters culminated with the creation of a nation, the children of Israel. God reenacts creation in the Exodus story, with the Jewish people as the central characters." So you can see the similarity between God creating the world and God creating us, the nation of Israel. Now you notice that Sarah Hurwitz is not called rabbi, she's called Rabbah. Rabbah Hurwitz is the president and co-founder of Maharat, the first institution to ordain Orthodox women as clergy. Sarah Hurwitz, when she was the first ordinee, she's an Orthodox woman, and she was uncomfortable calling herself rabbi, so she coined a new term for a female clergy person. She called herself rabbah. Now we see the same connection in the Bible's 2 versions of the 4th commandment, the same connection between the creation of the world and the creation of us, the people Israel, our moment when we had our Exodus. The Bible has 2 versions of the 4th commandment. Hayden and Jolie, you have the 10 Commandments as a part of your Torah portion, which you're going to tell us about tomorrow. And one version is in your Torah portion, Yitro, and another version is in the book of Deuteronomy. There are 2 versions of the 10 Commandments in the Bible. Now in Exodus, in the 4th commandment, Shabbat is a remembrance of creation. And this is source number 4. "For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth and sea and all that is in them. And God rested on the 7th day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it." So Shabbat reminds us of the creation of the world in the Exodus version of the 10 Commandments. But in the Deuteronomic version, Shabbat reminds us of freedom. And this is the last source. "But the 7th day is a Sabbath of the Lord your God. You shall not do any work. Remember that you were a slave in the land of Egypt, and the Lord your God freed you from there with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm. Therefore the Lord your God has commanded you to observe the Sabbath day. So Shabbat is supposed to be a remembrance both of the creation of the world and of the exodus from Egypt, of freedom. Now, if you look in your prayer book at the Kiddush that we say on Friday night, which the girls are going to lead us in just a moment, you can turn to page 90. The Kiddush for Friday night includes references both to the creation of the world and to the exodus from Egypt. The Kiddush on page 90 says, Praised are you, Lord our God. This is actually page 91 in the English. Praised are you, Lord our God, ruler of the universe, who has taught us the way of holiness through the mitzvot. Lovingly, you have favored us with the gift of your holy Shabbat as our inheritance, a reminder of creation, first among the sacred days, which recall the exodus from Egypt. So every Friday night, we remind ourselves of the dual symbolism of Shabbat. It's a reminder that God created the world and that God created us as a free people. And so let's do that right now. Let's everyone please rise for Kiddush, page 90. Hayden and Julie will lead us. There's cups of grape juice for both of you. The cantor's getting it. And you'll hear that they'll sing Zecher L'Maaseh V'Reshit, a reminder of creation, and Zecher L'Tziat Mitzrayim, a reminder of our exodus from Egypt.